Venezuela. Okay, let's start with element one. We've got new polling out from Reuters and Ipsos polls showing that only, 33% of Americans say they support removing Maduro. A whopping 72% of Americans say they are worried that the U.S. is going to get too involved. Sean, if you are the president, there are sort of two ways to look at this first poll, at least, right? Glass half empty, glass half full. Yes, it's only 33% supporting, but there is a huge chunk of voters, just as many, who are undecided about this, which perhaps they see as an opportunity. If you're in the White House, how are you reading this polling right now? Are you ducking for cover, or like saying, okay, we have minds we can change still?
I think a couple things. One, when you look at the breakdown of the poll, right, you realize this is a reflexive poll. I mean, it's like Republicans generally support what the president did. Democrats pretty much don't support what the president did. And then independents are sort of not with you entirely right now. You got about a third of them. So there's an opportunity with independents. You're never going to get the Democrats on board because it's anything that Trump does. If he cures cancer today, they're against it. I mean, so I think that you have to take it with a grain of salt. Number two, it's a flash poll, right? I mean, I think if you asked me on Friday, do you support going in and removing Maduro? I'd say why, right? I now have heard the president, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, the Secretary of War, the Attorney General all give the rationale for why it's in America's interest, what we're doing and why. There's a slow burn that's going to come with this. So you got to keep going out there and selling it. I think in the last 24 hours, they had an all hands on deck. So they are seeing this clearly either as just an opportunity or an additional way to sell it. I wouldn't be worried about this. I was completely not shocked by this at all. This, if you had to say to me, we're doing a poll, what do you think it's going to look like? I pretty much would have given you this.
I think if they can keep American troops from going back in, if they don't have to do that, and this sort of threat that he has made on the remaining regime actually works, I wouldn't be surprised if this becomes more popular. Dan, am I full of shit? Dan, what do you think?
Hold on, before Dan goes, let me just say this. Yes, 100%. Sorry, Dan. That's all.
Well, I think, look, here's the fundamental challenge that I think the Trump team has. They didn't run on this, and it's not what people necessarily voted for or want. Right, which is to say, nobody was going to bed Friday night thinking, I'm really, really scared about Venezuela and my kids and their future. Sure, of course, drugs is an issue, right? But I think the challenge for them is ultimately, we've always said this, people are like, what are you doing for me today with my life? This was Biden's issue with Ukraine. I mean, we thought like the Democratic Party, okay, everyone kind of doesn't like Russia and Putin. The world will kind of rally with us. Americans will rally with us. And, George H.W. Bush with Iraq. But fundamentally, people are saying, what are you doing for me with my life, with the economy, with the things that I care about? And so what I think the challenge is, Sean and Rachel, is you're right, as long as there's no troops, but as long as Trump and the White House are talking about this, meaning their focus and their attention is off our shores in another place, and people don't feel the immediate benefit, I think you run a huge risk. I mean, look, a third of Republicans. What was the last issue a third of Republicans were not in support of? When the White House was all in, and Fox and everybody on the right, not everyone, we'll get to this, were all in.
So I think your analysis is right, Dan, but I can answer it really quick. In Ukraine, I believe fundamentally there's when you have to explain why we're in Ukraine, it's because of the, oh my God, I'm blanking on the agreement we made with them.
Article 5?
No. We made a deal with them where we said, if you guys turn in your nuclear weapons, we'll protect you.
Oh, right.
I know someone's going to come up with it. Bottom line is that's a foreign policy argument. And then you can make the argument that, Russia, you have to stop them or they go further. But in Venezuela, as I've said forever, people vote on two things: personal security and personal economic well-being, right? And so one, we're keeping drugs out of the country by regime change. Two,
but we're not.
Oil will be lower and your gas and everything else will be cheaper. So if the White House messaging on this, hold on, but here's my point. You argued, how do they communicate this and get more people on board? I can make both arguments on Venezuela that hit both of the issues that people vote on. And I think they've been doing that. So whether you believe it or not, but I can actually articulate an America first personal message on Venezuela that I cannot do with Ukraine.
The challenge, though, often is when you're explaining you're losing in politics, and it's a complicated case to make. And Dan, just to your point, I was watching Fox and Friends just a couple of hours ago. Byron York was on there talking about this, and I mean, he's not exactly a Trump critic, and he was making this case about how it does take the attention away from economics, from the pocketbook concerns. And he said the reality is that Americans just don't care about foreign policy. And they're asking that question, what do you got to do for me? And Sean, it's just that matter of making that case of like, this is what this is going to do for you. If of course they can live up to that.
But I mean, this goes to the fact that like the rationale is kind of evolving, right? I mean, it's drugs-ish. It's oil and gold and raw minerals, right? It's a regional play. Like, there's a whole bunch of things. And I think, look, even on oil, like there are stories this morning that the major oil companies are really hesitant to go in there without U.S. security protection on the ground. What board of directors is going to greenlight sending 1,000 employees into Venezuela with their families if there's no one on the ground to protect them? Like, you just can't do that. Yeah. And so part of this goes to like, if go back to the history of this. If you colonize a country, you have to provide the protection to the people going in to do stuff. And I think, and it's also on the governing side. So, I mean, I think we're going to get to that. But again, Sean, I don't think you can sell this cleanly to the American people. And that's the problem.
Look, I don't think it's the easiest sell in the world, but at least I can make an argument. And I think that's the difference between that and Ukraine.
Let's go more to the oil topic and angle here, Dan, that you just brought up. The Energy Secretary, Chris Wright, and Interior Secretary Doug Burgum are going to be doing calls with oil company executives to sort of ask them, what do you need to feel secure? But you're right. I mean, gang activity, violence, this is still Venezuela, right? And we also have to talk about the cost of all this, because initially the president said the oil companies would foot the bill. Now the new line, he did an NBC interview yesterday where he said that they will be reimbursed. I imagine this is a price tag that's going to reach in the billions of dollars, right? And they're going to Congress is going to have to appropriate money for something like this, right, Sean? Do you think Republicans
they could find money if
taxpayer money?
Yeah, you could find some money.
The oil company down there?
I mean, you can always look, the executive can always find money, but it's not an easy.
And this is where it goes to selling the American people. I mean, now you're talking about U.S. money. Like, I go back to the interview that Kamala Harris did on Charlemagne the God during the 2024 campaign, when the caller from Detroit came in and said, why is our money going to Ukraine and not to Flint? Right? John Kerry's famous building firehouses in Ohio, not in Baghdad. You start sending money to Venezuela and people start saying, what are you doing? Like, I get your point, Sean, that ultimately gas prices could come down, but it is not like, again, I said this yesterday, you turn a spigot and the oil markets are coming right down. It's going to take years. Companies cannot just build and move people into Venezuela tomorrow.
And the midterms are 11 months away.
Well, I think, by the way, that to your point on the meetings with Chris Wright and Doug Burgum, it's not just, and Dan's right about the people, but I think the other point is the infrastructure. If you're, Exxon, do you really want to, like, you're putting massive drilling equipment and infrastructure into a country that you have to say, okay, this year, next year, but I'm making a 15, 20-year investment. What is it going to look like in 10 years, right?
Exactly.
And so the question that I think is going to be really important in the next 72 hours is, do these oil companies say something publicly about what they're willing to commit to? You've seen the Trump administration really corral a lot of companies to make foreign direct investment in the United States. Now you're asking them to go the other direction. And after these meetings, what do they say?
It's a really good
and what
question.
Are you saying to the people of Venezuela? Because you have some people talking about elections.
Yeah, I was just going to go there, Dan.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let me lay that out actually really quickly about the election piece, because we are now getting some insight into the administration's thinking on why they haven't recognized Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Machado and why they're essentially propping up Maduro's regime with Delcy Rodriguez. There was apparently a CIA analysis that found that keeping the regime would be best for country stability in Venezuela. And Marco Rubio, himself Secretary of State, apparently made this case that if you did go with Machado, it could destabilize the country and might require a more robust U.S. military presence in the area. Except here's the problem, right? We're already starting to hear from people on the ground who are very excited that Maduro is gone, that they want elections. To your point, Dan, I was just listening again to Fox and Friends, and there was a woman on there who was talking about how her family in Venezuela, their message to the president is finish the job. They feel like they're still living in fear and that a lot of these people in power are still going to terrorize them. Dan, you were just making, I'm sorry, I interrupted, but take
no,
this.
I mean, this is the whole, like, then what? Like the day after. And I think this is where you really do get the sense, like the plan is evolving. And I think ultimately, how do you allow them to have self-governance if what we're talking about is we're going to take your oil or we're going to partner with you, but like we're first in line. It's our companies. They're going to get a massive cut of this. We want your raw materials. Like now you have people talking about all the minerals for defense and various, technologies that Venezuela has. So, okay, are we taking that now? And what do you say to the Venezuelans? Because in the history of colonizing a country, what always gets people in trouble is the locals want self-control, whether it's the European powers or anybody. So what are we saying to all the locals who, as you say, including, by the way, in South Florida, where they want these elections, no, we need to kind of take everything that we want and we're going to control your country, which goes to whose boots are on the ground to ensure all of this.
And Sean, before you respond to this, let's bring up element number 2, Ted Cruz talking about this and the need to move toward elections.
Things that are so consequential about President Trump arresting Maduro is I am hopeful it will, in short order, lead to free and fair elections in Venezuela where they can democratically elect a leader and have a free market capitalist systems where they can develop those resources, I hope in close cooperation with the United States. That will benefit the people of Venezuela, but also very much benefit America.
Sean, how soon should they have elections?
As soon as they can guarantee that we have a plan in place and that the elections can be held. I mean, I get a kick out of this. We are 4 years plus out of Ukraine being invaded, and no one on the left cares that there hasn't been an election.
Well, there's a war going on. Like there's a
foreign
power in there.
Right. But fair enough. But you still can't hold an election there, and no one seems to worry about democracy in Ukraine. But here we are, 24, 48, 72 hours out of this issue with Maduro being captured, and everyone's now suddenly like, we have to have elections on Wednesday. Pump the brakes.
We went in. Like this is our.
Hold on. Let me just. Yeah, I think we should have elections, as Ted Cruz said, in short order. But I think that like the first thing that you need to do, everyone's worried about boots on the ground in elections. It's like, let's get it straight. Let's make sure our interests are aligned. Let's make sure that we actually have stability on the ground and that we don't have some kind of uprising and the military takes over and there's a coup. And then we kind of announce elections. I'm for elections. I'm for democracy. But you also have to ensure that you don't do it in a way that allows for a military coup and instability in a country that we just went and did something with to prevent military coups and instability.
Yeah, is Maduro's old regime going to allow free and fair elections?
I mean, this is the whole
I don't think, look, they have been allowed, just to be clear, think about it. They've actually happened twice in the past, 8 years? It's just that the rightful winner hasn't been able to take place. So I think there's a difference between the election and the installation of
transition of power.
So I think that there's a different issue here. But we should have them. We should ensure that there are not just a free and fair election, but then the rightful owner. But to the president's point and to Marco Rubio's point, installing somebody who doesn't have the backing of the military, and when you look whether it's Panama or Venezuela, if they don't have that support and they get toppled right away, then what have you actually accomplished?